to this. Well, this is not really a press conference as such. I mean, not strictly speaking a press conference. It's just a get-together to get acquainted with some of the people in the specialist press, not only specialist, but including specialist press that deal with the stuff that Cedefop has been doing some excellent work for almost 50 years now. And thank you very much for joining us. I'm Panos Polizoidis. I'm with the press office of Cedefop. And our speakers today and respondents will be the Executive Director of Cedefop, Jürgen Siebel, and the Deputy Director, Mara Brugia. This has been a hell of a year for us. You might have suspected more than a year, longer than a year, in fact. We were actually thrilled last October when it was announced. No, it was October 22, wasn't it? When it was announced that 2024 would be the European Year of Skills. And we were really thrilled because Cedefop does exactly that. Cedefop is the European Agency for Skills. And skills are skills development and, of course, skills, dealing with skills problems in general is and promoting skills is the key to one of the main challenges that Europe is facing, will be facing in the next decades, namely how to keep up and raise its competitiveness in the global environment. So we were excited then, and I think now that the European Year of Skills has ended, I think we remain excited, but you know, that that is for Jürgen and Mara to say, and for our guest reporters, journalists to inquire about. So let me ask you, if we do a very short round, a tour de table, and ask our reporters who have joined us to identify themselves, perhaps, and say a few things, very few things about the medium they represent, and I'll take it alphabetically. And Alexandra Huta is the first one on the list. Alexandra?
Hello. Hello to everybody. My name is Alexandra. I'm representing the Athens News Agency, Macedonian Press Agency. It's the national press agency of Greece. We have been covering Cedefop issues for many years now, and the research is a very valuable tool for me. I am inspired by what you do at the Cedefop, so I was very pleased to participate in this event. That's all from me. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Alexandra. And next one on the list is Aurélie Dossi. Aurélie, are you with us? Okay. There may be a problem with Aurélie's connection or something like that. She appears muted, but she's with us. I'll move on to Birute. Birute, can you identify yourself? Say a few things about yourself and the work you do. Birute does indeed have a problem connecting and speaking. She has logged off and probably she's coming back. Emilio Sanchez Hidalgo. Hi.
Hi, how are you? I work at El País, the Spanish newspaper, and I cover labor is the economic section in El País. That's my main interest, and of course skills is one of the main topics that we are always writing about. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. For the time being, last but not least, we have, let's see who is on our list. Well, no, again, we did have a bit of a problem. Some of the people we have can't connect properly. Anyway, let's start. Let's kick off. We have handed to the people who are invited a very short brief about the European Year of Skills, how Cedefop views the European Year of Skills and the state of affairs when it comes to skills in Europe, based, of course, on its own research. And we're going to be sharing some more information later. But let me just invite Jürgen for a short statement, really. I mean, an introductory note, if you'd like, Jürgen, about the European Year of Skills and the state of affairs of skills in Europe. What do you make of all this? It's been, what, 1.5 years, and you've been on Cedefop, or at Cedefop for, well, 6 years now, so you have a clear picture.
Yes, thank you, Panos, and thank you to the journalists who dialed in. It's great to have this conversation. The Year of Skills has ended in the beginning of this month, on Europe Day, to be very precise. And it's been, as Panos said, a rough ride for us, but a very, very welcome one, because when it was announced back in 2022 by President von der Leyen, you know, we thought, yes, this is indeed a very timely moment, because one of the objectives of this European Year of Skills was at the time to also promote a mindset of reskilling and upskilling. And if you look at the challenges that Europe is facing, starting from the current geopolitical issues, but also our demography, also the twin transitions that we try to master and shape, then it's quite apparent, at least to us working on skills, that skills is literally in every answer to all of these challenges. It's, if you will, like a glue across all different policy domains. And if the European Year of Skills has resulted in one understanding and broadened that mindset, it is that skills are important across all policy domains. And we noticed this through the Year of Skills, which put a spotlight on skills. Many people have approached us from outside our usual bubble. So we are very eager now, also looking forward after this year, to utilize these contacts that we have made, these conversations that have just started, to really push the skilling agenda further in order for Europe to achieve its objectives, on the one side to remain a competitive economy, and on the other side to give its people a fair chance and the skills that they need to master these transitions ahead of them. So we are really thrilled that we were kind of in the middle of this storm, and we're coming out of it strengthened, I believe, and with an indeed very interesting agenda to follow up in the next couple of years.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jürgen. And let me now turn to Mara Brugia, the Deputy Director, because I keep saying that Cedefop is the European agency for skills. Can you expand a little on that for our guests?
Thanks, Pano, and thanks to our guests for joining us. It's a pleasure for us. Well, as you may know, Cedefop is the European agency that supports union policies in vocational education and training, skills and qualifications, and their implementation. We are based in Thessaloniki, Greece, and from here we work for the whole of the European Union in close cooperation with the European Commission, the 27 member states, social partners, and other EU agencies and institutions. And as Jürgen said, the EU is currently facing several challenges which are reshaping our economies, our societies, and these ongoing transformations require skills across the board, also to enable new and quality jobs. But to address this challenge, these challenges, because we have more than one, we need vocational education and training, which is relevant, which is learner-centered, which is inclusive, which is efficient, because the proximity of vocational education and training to the labor market makes it a really highly valuable tool, not only for short-term skills development, but also for long-term employability. So this means that what we need is to have the right policies for training and skills development in place. But to design the appropriate policies, policymakers, both at EU and national level, need sound information. They need solid evidence about what the labor market needs in terms of knowledge and skills, for example. And this is precisely what Cedefop provides, because with our evidence, with our data, with our analysis, we provide the policy advice that enables policymakers to make evidence-based decisions. For example, we monitor what is happening in the labor market today and anticipate what is likely to happen in the years to come. We point towards the skills our economies and societies need to become greener and more digital. Or again, we support the implementation of EU policies in key areas of vocational education and training. Think, for example, about apprenticeships or upskilling pathways for adults, etc. So all this information based together that we call skills intelligence is what we call Europe's GPS in the much needed skills revolution. And this is why we believe that Cedefop really plays a key role in this important area of EU policy.
I suppose we'll be getting questions about this throughout this meeting.
Sure.
But talking about the European Year of Skills, do we have any data available relating to what Cedefop have produced throughout this year? I mean, because Cedefop deals with skills for decades, but this was a very specific year, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely, Panos. I mean, we produce on a regular basis studies, we publish documents, we have tools that are available for users online, we conduct events, workshops, etc. So we have always been doing that. But in the Year of Skills, of course, there was this additional challenge to push more of our information out to also unusual users, and I think we did pretty well. I looked at the numbers, so all in all, it was alone, just to give you an example, 21 dedicated events over a whole year. So that's on average almost every second week, a dedicated event. On top of that, at least the same number, if not double, where we contributed to events done by other people. For instance, when we opened the year in a ceremony that was across Europe, we attended in its Athens edition on the Europe Day in 2023. And we also were there when the year was closed formally on the 30th of April in Brussels. But this was not a Cedefop event. It was organized by the Commission, but we made valuable contributions for this. So 21 events alone. One new format that we invented along the way, the so-called virtual get-togethers, proved to be very successful with drawing large crowds to listen and almost being hooked like Netflix series viewers are. So I think we really managed to expand our outreach. And I would also like to say that, of course, we also conducted what we call the flagship event. It was last October, a large conference that we did on the importance of skills for the transitions. And this event had a satisfaction rate of 100%. That's a number we rarely see. We often, I mean, our average is 96%, which already I think is really huge. But in this particular event that we did in Brussels in October, we got 100% satisfaction rate, which told us also that, you know, we must be somehow on the right track in what we did in the context of this year of skills.
Right. Thank you very much, Jürgen. I think I've said enough. I think it's time to open the floor to our guests who may have some specific questions to ask you. And I suppose you and Mara will be doing your best to, you know, try and answer them. And if there are specific data that are not readily available, then we can always source them. We can always provide them at a later stage. So I think Alexandra would like to be the first to ask a question. Go on, Alexandra.
Hello. So thank you very much for all the information you gave us. My question is, how close are we to actually starting a skills revolution in Europe? What is done towards that direction? And can you create the relevant skills on time, because things are running in a very fast pace?
Mm-hmm.
This is my first question. I've got a second one, but I don't know if I could ask it now or I should do it.
Let's take them one by one. Is
Okay.
this one that Jürgen would like to take, or Mara?
I can have a first go if you want me to, and then Mara can of course chip in. I think if we, it's a very good question, because everybody is asking, are we up to it? Can we manage? Now we clearly have to see, and I give just one example in digital skills. Even basic digital skills, there are objectives that will require huge reskilling and upskilling for the adult workforce. We're talking of 90 million people in the European Union needing until 2030, which is only 5 more years, needing training just to achieve basic digital skills. So there is definitely an urgency, and that was maybe also part of the reason why declaring an entire year, the year of skills, to, as I said in my earlier intervention, it's also about mindset. People have to recognize, and when we do our surveys, skills and job surveys, we also see evidence that many people know that they need to reskill and upskill. So there's an awareness in our population and in the workforce. Yet if we look at the participation rates and participation numbers in upskilling and reskilling, they lag behind, and the improvements are also fairly slow. But we also see other signs of the revolution really kicking in. At least, for instance, if you look at green, where we see, you know, how intense, how green intense are actually job vacancies that are being posted. We see at the moment sometimes really exponential rates of this growing over the last couple of years, how important certain green skills are if they are mentioned inside our job vacancies that we monitor, which give us a kind of an overview of what's happening in the labor market right now. So one example is circularity, in terms of, you know, circular economies is a skill that's at very low levels at the moment, only 4%, but it has doubled every year in the last 3 years. So we see at least signs of this revolution kicking in, but the key message to everybody must be that far more needs to be done. And to quote our Commissioner for Jobs, Nicolas Schmid, he said in the closing event of the year that, you know, a year is certainly not enough. We need at least a decade, and we need nothing short than a skills revolution. So we can only subscribe to that. Mara, maybe you want to add some facts.
Yeah, just to complement what Jürgen said, I mean, indeed, many things have been done, but there is a long way to go to, let's say, to address the challenges of that a skills revolution entails. And what is also needed very much is a change in mindset. Because, for example, if we take the digital and the green transition, I mean, combined with the radical geopolitical changes, this is affecting and also disrupting our economies and societies, and they impact the way we think, we work, we live, we produce. But at the same time, we should see this as an opportunity also for, let's say, for a new competitive and sustainable economic growth model. And then I would also like to add that there are also the concepts themselves, for example, of greening or of digitalization are changing. For example, for a long time, digital revolution meant mainly rapid change in the IT sector. But this has changed drastically now, because the real digital revolution is outside the IT sectors, in the sense that jobs are becoming very rapidly more digital in all sectors of the economy. And as Jürgen was said, I mean, also the share of jobs advertised online that requires digital skills has doubled in some sectors since 2019. For example, if we take food service sector or the construction sector, and importantly, the digitalization is no longer affected high-level jobs, because also now also low-skill jobs are, let's say, are no longer shielded from the digitalization. In fact, digitalization in low-skill jobs is much faster than in high-skill jobs. And the last comment I would like to make, linked to this need of changing also mindset a little bit, to changing also our governance, is an important gender gap when it comes to digital skills or when it comes to green skills. I mean, female are strongly and severely underrepresented when it comes to green skills and digital skills. And this, of course, reflects the more general imbalance in the employment structures. So, I mean, there is also a lot to be done there, because if Europe has to reach the target it itself has set, we must bring back or bring in the labor market underrepresented categories, and females are for sure one important component.
Let me, before we move on to the next question, let me just, just a short follow-up question for Mara or Jürgen. Mara just mentioned the targets, the EU targets. Generally, we've been hearing this year, and we just heard it from Jürgen, I think, that a lot has been done, but there is a lot more to be done. And the way to measure the success so far is by looking at these targets. I suppose some targets have been met and some haven't. Do we have a general idea or a general picture as to whether really the European Union is moving ahead satisfactorily based on those targets?
Yeah, I mean, to give the example of the European the European pillar of social rights, where there's an action plan which prescribes that 60% of adults should participate in lifelong learning activities, and this target is being reached by some countries, but we are at the current measure, and I would have to double check the numbers, we're somewhere in the upper 30s, and we have to get to 60% by the end of this decade. So we see that, and if you then also project how much improvement has happened in the years before, for instance, 2020, when this was also a target or an objective at different levels in the policy agenda, then we see that we really need acceleration effects here for sure. So we are not doing well enough. We have some promising ideas, and you have to see that it's not only just this one number. There's a lot of processes, a lot of tools in the background, for instance, also providing financial and non-financial incentives to bring more employers to offer such learning opportunities, and also employees to participate in these kinds of trainings that we analyze, and where we also facilitate best practice sharing between the relevant players in the member states, so that we can copy from those who somehow manage to get the numbers up. But funding remains also a key issue, and therefore we always say that more funds need to be made available, financed, co-financed, usually, in the sense that there are state funds, there are companies investing, and there's also maybe not a financial, but at least a non-financial investment of the learner needed to, devote time and brain to, picking up on new skills that they may need also to secure their own well-being and future career. So there's a multitude of policies that are all, if you will, in the end, learner-centered, because we want to bring the learner to the learning experience. And we look into all of these different angles and provide information, but we see, to come back to your question, that the pickup of these tools and policies is at the moment too slow, and it requires further efforts to go there to reach those objectives. They are very ambitious. And as Mara said, also the objectives are ambitious beyond the skills. I mean, the Green Deal itself is a very ambitious product. And if we then don't get the skills, it will also be difficult to attain and achieve those objectives at sort of the higher level of policy.
Yeah.
Right. I think that
if I may
clarify things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, of course, Mara.
Continuing a little bit on the targets that the EU had set itself. I mean, if we take the target for the digital transition, the target the EU has set is that 80% of Europeans should have at least basic digital skills by 2030, where we are nowhere near reaching this target, really nowhere, and only Finland and the Netherlands are expected to reach it. So it is clear that Europe has a major digital skills deficit, but at the same time, I think that the setting of EU targets, it's also a push for all of us and for countries to do more. I mean, let's think about how the situation is now for digital skills, for example. More than half of all adult workers in the EU need to develop their digital skills to do their job better. And we are not talking about high-level digital skills. We are talking about the fact that 1 in every 5 EU adult workers do not know how to navigate the web. So this means that we are lagging quite behind with regards to digital skills, and
particularly on low-skilled jobs, I suppose, given what you just said. Yes. Exactly.
Absolutely. And also, for example, it is for, I mean, there are almost, I think, 70% of EU enterprises, EU companies, which report a strong gap in digital skills. And to address this gap, the EU has set the target of increasing the number of IT professionals from 9 to 20 million. But so the targets are there, the political willingness is there. So now we need to move to full implementation, and we need really to do much more and much faster if we want to continue ensuring a competitiveness and at the same time a fair Europe for everybody.
Thank you very much, Mara. It's now time to move on to Emilio Sanchez Hidalgo, who is has a question to ask.
Yeah,
hi,
thanks.
Go on.
Hi. My question is, I always follow the job vacancy statistics, job vacancy rates. It's a data that we are always focusing on. It's important because here in Spain there's a problem in speech. Some people say that there are no vacancies and use Eurostat data to show it because of our 0.9 vacancy rate in Spain. And other people say that this data is not accurate, that we have a much bigger problem on this subject. Of course, I'm not asking you about an opinion on this. It's a subject for Spanish actors on this, but I would like to know if you have an opinion on this data, if you think that it's representing the vacancy problem in properly, because, for example, I have now the average data in Eurostat is going down in the recent months. I don't know. What do you think about this statistic?
Let me just clarify something, Emilio. What is the source of this kind of data that you refer to?
Yeah, is Eurostat. I can show you. I can show you in the chat if you like.
Yeah, you can just put the link in the chat. While I think Jürgen is quite.
No, I can. I mean, I think. I mean, clearly, what we see. I mean, maybe not for Spain. I don't know now on country level, but across the EU, we really observe widespread and persistent trend of rising vacancy rates, which supports this notion of that there are labor and skills shortages, and you hear it also in the reports from employer associations that they cannot find people with the right skill set. So I think vacancy rates exist, and of course at the economic level they really also create a big problem for us, because we have to transform our economies. And if you have to transform your economies, and it's, by the way, no longer only because of digital and green, it's very much also triggered by the geopolitical issues of trying to nearshore activities that we used to send off to China, and now for political reasons would like to have back. So the transformation effort of our economies is huge, and then vacancy rates that are rising is not helpful. On the other hand, and therefore, rightly so, also the EU has released just in March this package on addressing this action plan on skills and labor shortages, which as part of it also addresses issues regarding training and upskilling the workforce, which is sort of dear to our heart. But it's more complex than that in our view, because there are also large problems of skills mismatch and underutilized skills. And Mara already addressed this in terms of, one measure must also be labor market activation. It's not only matching skills, it's also purely activating. And the female activation rates in some countries in Europe are, if you will, shockingly low, and we will need these people if we want to succeed in those transformative processes that are going on. So mismatch is something that needs to be addressed, and it's also, if you sometimes cannot find workers for a certain job, one of the questions also, are the conditions good enough to attract people to this? And because of demography, labor markets are turning. It's the workers that are calling the shots, and so there's also pressure on companies to create working conditions and jobs that are interesting enough to attract people. And the good news is, for instance, from our European company survey that it's from 2019, so it's not very recent, but still there we found that employers who actually invest in making their workplaces more attractive, giving people more say, giving them more challenging and interesting tasks, and by that also providing learning opportunities on the job, which we call learning conducive workplaces. If you invest in those kinds of practices, our survey showed, it pays into your bottom line. So it's actually it's beneficial for the employer to engage in these kinds of work design ideas, and on the other hand, interestingly, only about 1/5 of the employers are engaging in these kinds of practices, despite the fact that they pay off. So for us, one key finding and also one key message that we keep sending in the context of the Year of Skills is that we not only have to invest in skills formation, we also have to invest in jobs at the same time. It goes hand in hand, because then we can unleash the potential of many people who are underutilized in their skill sets, and that will help us to close the gaps that we can otherwise not close.
And if I may complement the question that you asked, Emilia, to complement what Jürgen said, I think it's important to bear in mind that job vacancies only tell us something about sectors.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we also need to know, of course, about occupations and about skills. And this is why we use big data, because in online job vacancies, because big data help us mapping the situation also at regional level, a much more granular level. And so the more granular you go, and the more reliable your data are. So this is just to say that job vacancy rates is only one of the elements that we need to understand shortages. I mean, it's a good starting point, but it is not, let's say, per se on its own, a reliable indicator, let's say, for understanding shortages. I don't know, Emilio, if your question was answered by Jürgen. Yeah.
Let me just share some data, which is I don't know. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we
can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Now you can see here that Spain has a bit of a problem. Yeah. These are data sourced from Cedefop tools. These tools are available to anyone. They are available to journalists, of course. They are also available to researchers and the general public, anyone who has an internet connection. Now, Spain seems to have a bit of a problem with qualifications. More than a third of the working force is low skilled, well, has low qualifications. And that is far larger than the EU average, whereas you have a bit of a champion in Lithuania here, as you can see, just 5.6%, and Spain 36%. Well, the good thing is that if I go further down here, I can see that Spain, on the other hand, has very many, well above EU average, unemployed adults in lifelong learning. You see here it's more than 17%. So that looks like an optimistic sign, and also is the champion of at least basic digital skills in adults. And the other thing I wanted to say is that, because you mentioned it, I think Jürgen did, there is always this, by trade, I'm a journalist. So there is always this beef between journalists, the editorial staff in media, and the commercial staff in media. Commercial staff accuse the journalists that they don't produce a good enough product so that they can sell, and journalists respond that, well, the sellers are completely incompetent, and that's why that's why they can't sell a good product. And I was reminded of this when Jürgen mentioned that we need good jobs. You know, businesses complain we can't find the right people. But is it always the case, or is it, according to our Cedefop research, or is it also the case on many occasions that the skills are there, but companies can't have access to them, either because they don't recruit satisfactorily or because they don't offer good terms? Jürgen?
Sorry, you caught me off guard. Could you repeat your last sentence?
Yeah, I was saying that, is it always the case that skills are missing from the market? Or is it on several occasions the case that businesses just cannot have access to them because they don't know how to find them, they can't recruit sufficiently enough, and they don't offer good terms, good jobs?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of all. Yeah? I mean, it's that is the phenomenon that we see, and I think we have seen. If you want a good explanation for this, I think COVID delivered one where you know, because of the disruptions that it caused, let's say in the hospitality sector, where you know people from one day to another were out of work, or businesses out of their business, because all restaurants, for instance, had to close, or hotels had to close, and the people who worked there, they had to then look for other jobs. And when after the COVID crisis, tourism industry and hospitality kicked back in, they had huge problems and huge vacancy rates, if you will, and difficulties in finding people, because the people that had worked for them had maybe learned in the meantime, hey, there's also jobs out there where I don't have to spend every night in the kitchen. There's jobs out there where I have a free weekend, like my friends. And so it became apparent that, you know, if people have to adjust, they do so, and then whether they return to these kinds of jobs is a question, and we have seen it was difficult, and it was also something that required maybe to make better work conditions the norm in this sector, to actually bring back employment into this sector. So that's a good test example. Whether this is now applicable for every vacancy or for every job, that's a bit far-fetched, but indeed it's a mix of skilling people. There are always supply and demand side issues, and if you only look at kind of the issue of the labor and skills shortages, then you know you're looking at the demand side. There's a demand that's not satisfied, and you're looking, you know that you have to find solutions also on the supply side, namely skilling people to be capable of doing this, investing in the jobs that they should take, including their conditions and activation in particular, and getting rid of the mismatch, which is a huge waste to the economy.
But Mara, there was another example.
May I complement what Jürgen said?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I just want to add one more example, which is quite telling. It was not only the hospitality sector that couldn't find enough people post-pandemic. It was also the airports. You remember the huge crisis all around Europe with airports, because the people they were forced to lay off during the pandemic were not very keen in returning to those jobs. So what's going on, Mara?
Sorry, I lost you.
I mean, I can maybe pick up. I can pick up on Panos' question, and Mara, you then make your compliment. Okay. I mean, the airports, etc. I think here an interesting facet of the pandemic, and really a huge success of the EU, is also, of course, the SURE program at the time. You know that in some industries it was not necessary to lay off people, because these funds came in and allowed to put people on some kind of holding pattern, to take another word from the aviation industry, so that when the pandemic was over, that our economy on the whole proved quite resilient because we had not laid off everyone. But where layoffs happened, you are absolutely right. That was the moment when people thought about alternatives in their career paths. Acquiring a new skill, going into a different sector, or even, we had this la grande résignation. I mean, people not even coming back from having kind of been forced to resign and then making it actually a choice. But I think Mara wanted to complement to what I had said before. So please, Mara.
Yeah, I want to complement your remark, which I fully share, of course, Jürgen, to bear in mind that skills mismatch as a supply side, but also a demand side. And and this is also linked back to the second question of Panos, which in the meantime I understood through Jürgen's answer. So, and when we look at the European policy landscape of the past 2 decades, a lot of emphasis has been put on the supply side policies and interventions, because normally workers are asked and are expected to be job ready. So it is thought that it's primarily their responsibility to become fit for a job, in the best scenario with some support from public policy. And this is necessary, of course, but skills mismatches are also closely linked to demand side characteristics, as Jürgen said. Unattractive jobs, low pace, or insufficient possibility to use and develop own skills at the workplace. So this is why policy also needs a much stronger focus on improving work quality. So, as I said, in terms of conditions, pay, learning potential, career development opportunities, and this is an aspect which has been a little bit neglected in the policies so far. And reinforcing this aspect will definitely help address the skill mismatch that the EU is experiencing, and which is huge, and which, by the way, has a cost for our economies, for our societies, also at the microeconomic level, as an impact on labor productivity, a negative impact, of course, so a negative impact on growth. So we need policies and actions to tackle skill shortages, both from the supply side, but also from the demand side. And I think this is important to bear in mind.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mara. I have not forgotten that Alexandra Ruta had a second question to ask. So
Thank you, Panos.
Go on.
It's a double question, actually. There is an exponential development of AI, especially Gen AI, and many people are afraid that they will lose their jobs. So my first question is, are people in fact reskilling and upskilling to close this gap? And what are the demographics of people that try to upskill and reskill? This is the first question. And the second question is there any data about how this exponential growth of technology is indeed impacting people's jobs in Europe? Thank you.
Right. Who would like to take over?
Perhaps you can go first.
Okay. I can't see Jürgen. I think he might have a bit of a problem right now. Yes.
Yeah, also the connection was not very clear, and also the questions of Alexandra were not very clear either, due to the connection.
Okay, Alexandra, I suppose you can ask again.
Shall I rephrase? Shall I make my questions again?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, first question is, people tend to fear technology, that technology will take our jobs. And this is maybe a justified fear due to the exponential growth and development of AI. So first question, do people actually try to reskill and upskill? And what are the demographics of people that try to reskill? Are they mainly men, women? What age? What kind of jobs, etc.? And the second question is, is there any data about in what pace technology is actually impacting and affecting our jobs today?
Yeah.
So
is it more clear now? Or okay, thank you.
So I don't know if Jürgen is back in the meantime, or otherwise I would have a first go and then we try to. We hope.
I think you should have a go. Yes, and Jürgen will be back at some point, I understand.
Yeah, so as you said, Alexandra, there is a lot of debate, a lot of talk about, you see, will digitalization, will artificial intelligence create jobs, will it destroy jobs, where both are true. But from our data, it is also very clear that the number of jobs that will be created or expanded or improved by digitalization is much more than the actual number of the jobs which will be destroyed. And as we were saying, so there are, of course, jobs at risks. I mean, the routine jobs, for example, I mean, they are jobs at risks because automation and artificial intelligence is likely to destroy them. But I mean, the net employment benefit is clearly there. I mean, digitalization is an opportunity to reshape our works and to make them more digital, and the jobs which will be destroyed are much less than the jobs which will be created. So this is on your first question. Then, in terms of upscaling and reskilling, well, this is a little bit of an issue because normally what we see is that the more people are qualified and the more people are skilled, the more they upskill and reskill. So this is to say that normally those who are better equipped with their skills are those who follow, you see, continuing training or upskilling and reskilling pathways. And this is a problem because basically those who would need it most, mainly the low skilled, the low qualified, there the participation rate is much, much lower. So this is another important point when it comes to actions which needed in terms of policy. And then the last part of your question, Alexandra, if I got it correctly, is what about gender in this upskilling, reskilling process? Well, as I said before, I mean, the gender gap is a problem in general terms in the employment structure and also in the possibilities which are given also to women to upskill and reskill. For example, we need much more women in the digital, I mean, in the STEM fields, because the participation rate is really low. And according to our latest survey, think that last year, only among all the people employed by digital companies, below 20% were women. So this is really an issue which need to be tackled. So I don't know if I got correctly your questions, Alexandra.
I may have
some. The first one, yes. I don't know if you have any specific data about how many jobs are expected to be created and how many jobs are expected to be destroyed, because you mentioned that there is data that the jobs created will be more. Could you mention specific numbers? And the second question is, what happens today? Is the technology already taking jobs in Europe? All the fears are somehow unjustified for the time being.
I mean, maybe allow me while, first of all, to apologize. I lost the connection and I'm now dialed in with a different device because my computer somehow has lost its connection. Sorry for being absent. But I mean, this whole issue of job losses, be it through the digital transformation or other parts, is usually, if you will, overrated if you focus on jobs, because it's not jobs that are being replaced, it's tasks that are being replaced. So, and a job is a bundle of tasks. And if and we've seen this in all the technology revolutions, that when they come in, that people have fears of, because of the computer, we will no longer need, secretaries. And it's different, because things have more adjusted at the task level rather than at the job level itself. Second aspect that we need to observe is that there are also demographic issues and a huge replacement demand. So even in jobs for which we believe they will see a decline, for instance, lorry drivers, because everybody feels maybe in 15 years, automation will lead to, lorries being self-driven. Let's assume that happens. At the moment, we have so many lorry drivers retiring that we still have this listed as a kind of shortage occupation. We cannot find enough lorry drivers. So there are multiple mega trends affecting how labor markets evolve, and technology is just one facet of this. And of course, we're observing this, and we are maybe a kind of a preview. We're also looking at how AI will now affect jobs and the labor market, and we're hopeful that first insights from our survey that we have conducted in this field can be presented on the 24th of June when we do a joint seminar together with the Belgian presidency of the Council of the European Union in Brussels, where we will show first results. So while not now giving you numbers, I leave that to Mara. I have some for the green, not for the digital at the top of my head, but the whole threat scenarios are overstated if you look at jobs, but they're definitely not overstated when it comes to tasks and to the relevance of updating individual skills so that they can work with digital tools. And this goes across the board, as we said before. It's no longer an issue of the ICT sector. It's an issue of every sector. So everybody needs this type of upskilling, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all the jobs will be gone.
Yeah, and perhaps I can complement. One aspect also to be considered is that normally those people who are at risk of losing their jobs due to full automation of their jobs normally are the ones who realize very late, and so they do not engage in upskilling and reskilling, not only because they don't want, but also because sometimes they are not supported in let's say in taking up upskilling or reskilling opportunities. And now Alexandra wanted some numbers. Now a couple that I have on the top of my head are the following. Then of course we can provide more detailed data after the event. It's what we see from our work is that digitalization has the most negative employment impact on the construction sector, because there we expect a lot of jobs and tasks to be fully automized and replaced by by technology, so to say. And there we estimate a -1 million jobs. We also see a very negative employment impact due to digitalization on what we call administrative services. And here again, our estimate is in the order of -1 million jobs. While, for example, there are other sectors, for example, IT sector or the research and development sector, where we foresee, of course, a positive employment impact. And there, for example, we estimate that there will be about 1 million additional jobs. So this is just at more aggregated level. Then if you need more detailed data, we will.
Could you please specify in what time frame this number of jobs is expected to either be lost or?
Till 2035, I think.
2035. Yeah. Thank you.
And likewise, if I may add, on the green, we estimate that the employment effects of the Green Deal are 2.5 million additional jobs by 2035. But this assumes, and that's always important with all these projections, this assumes that the Green Deal objectives are implemented, so that we have the wave of making our building infrastructure, more isolated, so that you don't have these losses of energy. And the respective trades and crafts that are affected by this type of work will actually get to do the work. Then it will be a positive effect of 2.5 million. So we see that every challenge, every revolution or disruption coming our way usually also creates a lot of opportunities. And therefore, we should push for people being able to adjust, employers being able to adjust and fund it accordingly, so that we can make use of these disruptions, rather than allowing them to not only disrupt but even destroy our economy.
I suppose it's the pretty old theory of creative destruction, right? That as a new technology destroys a number of jobs and occupations, but on the other hand, it creates more new ones. And the worry here is that artificial intelligence is accelerating technological advance at an unprecedented pace. In fact, so quickly that perhaps the creative destruction procedure cannot catch up. And I think Alexandra actually noted that. Well, she asked about it, about reskilling and continuing learning, and I fished out some indicative data that I am now sharing with you. Are they visible now? Now,
yes.
VET, Vocational Education and Training, and continuing VET, CVET, seems to indeed be an answer to this anxiety of whether new jobs will be created soon enough and people will be able to adapt to these needs soon enough as artificial intelligence accelerates the destruction of all jobs. And vocational education and training is a good tool for everyone, for policymakers and also for people, and continuing VET as well. And we can see some selected data here. Greece, Alexandra, is pretty low. Only 1 in 5 of adults participated in the last 12 months in continuing vocational education and training programs.
And if I may, Panos, and this is, I mentioned it earlier, the social pillar action plan says that we should have 60%. And so we see a couple of countries being there or close enough, and others have some more catching up to do. Indeed, this is one of the facets. But coming back to creative destruction and whether AI will accelerate this, I think this is a bit too early to really see, and that's why our first step as Cedefop in this direction, as mentioned before, will be by the end of June, when we present some first insights from the specific survey we conducted in this context, and then we will pick it up. But indeed, the alert mechanism should be in place. And maybe because when I dropped out of this meeting, I wanted to make one remark on this whole idea of labor and skills shortages and whether they are balanced on supply and demand side. I think if we look at the new action plan for labor and skills shortages that was issued by the Commission in March, we see that they have already adjusted now and have added out of the 5 objectives, there's one of them which is improving working conditions. There's another one that's about providing skills, training and education. And it's also one that is about activation of underrepresented groups. So I think we're moving in the right direction to get where we need to get. And then I think the issue of technology impacting the way we work will solve itself. If we have the proper training mechanisms and the mindsets and the funding in place, then I think these things can be overcome, whether they are accelerated or not.
Would you like to say a few words about, Mara, about the role of vocational education and training specifically in that process of catching up with new needs and new jobs and new tasks?
Well, vocational education and training for us has a dual role in addressing these challenges, because first of all, in the short term, vocational education and training is very flexible and can react very quickly to changing needs emerging in the labor market. And this can be done, for example, through short training programs or modular approaches. So, I mean, in the short term, that vocational education and training gives you the possibility to address shortages very quickly. But also in the longer term, I mean, that can also, let's say, help a lot, because think about in the long term, this means, for example, embedding digitalization or the circularity concept into curricula, for example. It also means attracting young people to some professions which are needed. I don't know, for example, the agri-food sector or some of the green occupations which are needed. And it means attracting women. And so this means that in the longer term, vocational education and training does not simply, I would say, accompany the change or react to the change, but it is, let's say, a lever of innovation. It's a lever of change, you see. And so this is why vocational education and training is really key to address the challenges that Europe is facing. And if you allow me, Panos, I would like to make a comment on what you said about creative disruption. And disruption is a word I don't like in general. And in fact, what we try to do with our approach in Cedefop when it comes to digitalization, we advocate for what we call a human-centered digital transition. So this means trying to make sure that the digitalization takes into consideration people's needs, aspirations, and that support people throughout this process. Because, as I said at the beginning, is also let's say a shift in the mindset which is needed. So workers and young people and of all ages, not only young people, need to be supported, need to be accompanied in this process. So we cannot just say, you see, you lack 10 skills, now it's your problem, yeah? Not at all. So we need accompanying policies, also, as I was saying before, from the demand side, to make sure also that there are the proper conditions for people to get equipped with the skills and the abilities which are needed.
And if I may add to what Mara said on the role of VET, I couldn't stress this more enough, because we also, as you know, have a image problem still of vocational education and training as a track. It's in many countries not seen as an equal pathway to a good career. And this is very sad, because indeed, for the transitions we go through, it is not the repair shop. It's not where you send everyone who can't cope with the change. Quite the contrary. It's the place where the change itself is enabled, because that's where new technologies are transferred in an application way to young or older people, so that they can be implemented right away on the spot. So it is a key feature to extend the vocational track wherever we can, because it's an enabler of managing these transitions. And if we manage them, and also to close the loop to what Mara just said, that we will also manage to do so in a fair and inclusive way. And that is, I think, one of the key messages as well, that we should not leave anyone behind. And this means we need to up the game on the support processes that Mara mentioned. But then VET is a hugely successful enabler of any kind of transition, be it green, be it technological, be it anything else.
Right. Thank you very much for this, Jürgen. As we are getting near the end of this meeting, I just wanted to ask whether there are any more questions from the floor, from Alexandra, Aurélie, or from Birute from Lithuania. It seems that there isn't. I don't see any hands raised. So I think you, Jürgen, you rounded off well, pretty well what the whole thing, what this whole meeting was about, and I think that Mara and yourself have offered a lot of useful ideas for further reporting. And let me just say that we're here, like for reporters. I'm addressing my journalist colleagues. We have a wonderful website, cedefop.europa.eu, with a number of a huge, a vast wealth, a treasure trove of information, of publications, policy advice, research, and also online tools. They're very nice to play with, actually. Online tools where you can find data, country-specific data, Europe-wide data, comparative data as well. So you can go through and compare how your country is faring in various indicators compared to other countries and to the whole of the European Union. And also, whenever we have something new, we publish it on our social media channels. That goes without saying. And we are here to take your calls. Anyway, it does happen. I mean, reporters do call us and ask for some specific data, and we can do that. We dig and find the data that the media are interested in. We can also direct them to the right experts, researchers, Cedefop researchers, who can look, who can look into your questions in more depth and or perhaps make themselves available for an interview or whatever is needed. So I hope we build a relationship. We keep building our relationship with the specialized media and the specialized reporters in general media. And thank you all very much for taking the time to join us here today. Thank you for being here. And thank you, of course, to Mara Brugia, Cedefop's Deputy Director, and Jürgen Siebel, who is the Executive Director, and all my colleagues who took part. Cristina Comunian from the Communications Department, and our help desk people for taking care of all the technical glitches, even managing to get Jürgen back onto the frame. So thank you very much for being with us. And yeah, there will be another opportunity to talk about, well, it will obviously be after the summer, but there will be another opportunity to talk about even more specific things. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.